All right. Well, welcome to Music, Motivation, and Mindset. My name is John Parker. It's Thursday night. It's 7 o'clock, and we got some great guests tonight. I'm going to introduce them one by one, bring them onto the camera. And tonight we're going to be talking about a lot of DJ remixes, edits, what labels can do to better help the DJ, a lot of live streaming stuff. So I think you're going to like it. Let's get started. First up, I'll bring on Mr. Chuck Barrett from Promo Only Promotions. Hello. Next up is Bit Era, and he is from Energy 98. We've got Nick Dietrich from the Disco Fries, and Danny will be joining us a little bit later. John Hohman from Metro Mix, and DJ Scooter, who's doing wonderful things with his edits and mix shows and all the fun stuff. So, guys, welcome to the show. What's going on?
How are you, man?
Cool, hello. Cool. Don't everyone talk at once. You know?
I was painting my bathroom right before this started. So.
Were you?
Yeah, like literally, I was like, "Oh, like look at my hands."
That's great.
So quarantine. It's music and painting.
I hear you.
Quarantine crafts.
Fun stuff. So let's start with Nick. Nick, how did you get started in the music business?
Oh, wow. You're really going from back then.
Yeah, I mean, just a little bit of brief history of what really motivated you to get started.
So I'll do the brief history. I started playing piano when I was 7. Just parents kind of pushed me into that. And then when I was like 12 or 13, I saw a DJ at a school dance, and I was like, I want to do that. That seems a lot cooler than playing piano. So I started DJing around then, did like weddings, Sweet 16s, all like the mobile stuff, and had plenty of the promo only CDs at that time. And then when I was probably like 15 years old, I was like, I want to do both of these things. Because I got reasonably good at playing piano, but I was like, I want to mold both of these things into one. And that's when I started doing production, because it felt like the closest middle ground. And did a ton of hip hop records at that time. And then I ended up going to Berklee College of Music in Boston, which is where I met Danny. And we started doing remixes together. So I wasn't really doing them prior to that. But we started doing remixes together and did a lot of like 80s mashups, and ran in the same crews as Scooter, and did a lot of different stuff that hopefully will never see the light of day again. But from that, like, we did an official remix for Flowrider that was our first like real mix for Atlantic, and that ended up going multi-platinum. Wow. And it was kind of like off of that we were able to piggyback on that and do a ton more. Britney Spears and Selena Gomez and all these people kind of came on the heels of that. So that was the 2-minute version.
There you go. Well, I've got some bad news for you though. Whatever those mixes were, Bert has them.
I know he does.
Well, I still have some throwback Disco Fries.
Wow.
Buried on my drive.
Yeah. Scooter, why don't we go to you? How'd you get involved in the music business?
Kind of, sort of similar to Nick. I was like middle school and was going to like little birthday parties for my classmates. And back then, like multi-disc changers were kind of like, not everybody had them. And at those parties, like everyone kind of stood in awkward groups. Like there'd be like 25 people at a party, and 3 girls would be here, guys would be here, and they would just like throw on like the current CDs of the time, and they would just rotate. And I remember like being at 2 or 3 of those parties and like I was like 13 or 14, and I remember like I was the only one noticing that the same CD came back on, and it would bother the crap out of me. I'm like, we've already heard this CD, like, you know what I mean? It would be like right. The very first like Jay-Z CD he ever put out, or like pop, like, like Aguilera, like Limp Bizkit. That was like that era, like early on. And then I was like, okay, I bought 2 Discmen, and I was doing parties with a Radio Shack mixer. I was doing those same parties, like when they would have another birthday party. I'm like, yo, pay me $50. Like, I sat there with like a pause on one like Discman and another one. And I had bought like Newmark turntables that were belt driven, and like I had one of my parents' old turntables, and I was messing around at home with that. And then I started editing on my parents' Windows 95 computer, and they had a program called Windows Wave Editor, which is single track.
Yeah.
Which you had to like copy and paste over top of each other, and then if it didn't sound right, you undo it and re-paste it. That's how like my infancy of editing started. And then radio, I got into radio as an intern, and then got put on the morning show within like 4 months. And they had Cool Edit Pro, and I got forced to learn that because you had to do radio promo. So I figured I was like multi-track, what? It, like blew my mind. So that kind of like evolved into me posting free stuff online in forums, and then from forums, people just started knowing me in the DJ community, and then it was on like, like websites. Like back then, it was like Crook and Clan, and then it just kind of evolved from there. And then you get to know people. Like music industry is smaller the higher you go. You know what I mean? Like we all know each other. Like it gets everyone knows the people that are doing stuff that is like good work. So. And I like to always think that good people, work together, and I like to pass on other talent. So that's kind of my outlook on the music industry right now. So
cool. All right, let's say hello to Sam Pay, who says hello to us. Scotty Bouchard, as you know him as Scotty B. From Promo Only. He cheered 100 cheer bits, whatever they are. I don't know yet. I'm still on the talk show thing,
You're rich. You're rich.
I thought it was going to be this, that's what I was talking about, but instead I got this. But we love you still, Scotty.
IAMC. Oh, you can't.
Speaking of Promo Only, Chuck Barrett, what got you involved in the music business?
Well, I didn't get started as young as Scooter and Nick. When I got out of the Navy, or actually I was still in the Navy, and I was in a club, and it was dead. And the DJ was playing downstairs. It was like a Monday night. And I was catching a buzz. I'm like, how is he making all those songs sound like one song? It's like a 4-hour medley now, So I went down and talked to him and said, hey, would you show me how you do that? And he wouldn't do it for a long time. He's like, look, wow. You're a rockhead. You won't like doing this. You don't want to. And I kept bugging him. And he finally brought me up in the DJ booth and showed me how to do it. And actually got my first club gig in that same club. Wow. So fast forward a few years later, a club that I was working at, I had been there for a while, had put in my notice to go somewhere else. Well, Pete Werner was the replacement DJ. They moved him from Knoxville, Tennessee to Orlando. He took up resident in that club, and I went to a club about 4 blocks down the road, and he and I hit it off like right away. So when they started Promo Only, a few years after they started, I'd moved away and come back to Orlando and walked in the office. He's like, want a studio gig? And I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? So I started working for Promo Only back in '97 and have been here for almost 25 years.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah. Bert Bitnera, how'd you get started?
Well, for radio, when I first went to CEGEP, which is our equivalent of college here, I was looking for social activities to do because I didn't know anybody, and I joined the student radio station, and I was, I think, the only person out of the 25 or so DJs who had time slots in there that was playing dance music at all. But I would actually pre-prepare the shows at home because I have no audience anyway. And I would prepare like an hour and a half mix, and I would just play it on their station, and I would do my homework while it's playing. And I was in touch with the guys at Energy 98 at the time. They were kind of teaching me a little bit how to find music and about how this industry works. And they had a mix show DJ who hadn't turned in his show one week. So I said, well, hey, I got this show I put together for student radio. Maybe you can use that. and they did. And then the next week, the same thing happened. And
Wow.
after a couple months of this, I said, "Look, I think this is my time slot now."
Right. I'm just going to take this one.
It's been mine ever since.
That's great. Fantastic. John, how'd you get started?
Well, as a child, I was exposed to music from my family. My grandfather was in the opera. I had an uncle who was in a serious barbershop quartet. My mother would play the music and dance in the house. And so at a young age, I was exposed to music a lot. But really didn't really do anything with it until I went to college. I had a roommate. His name was Rich Hernandez. And he pretty much brought in 2 turntables, and I was like, my world just completely changed from then on. I ended up playing big super clubs in the Pittsburgh market for years. Got into reel-to-reel editing. Now I'm starting to show my age. There was no computers
Really?
back then.
Razor blades.
Reel-to-reel and razor blades turned
Grease
into
pencils.
me doing my own edits and playing them, at the clubs, which then got me a job at the Automat Studios in San Francisco doing editing for guys like Randy Jackson and Narda Michael Walden. And yeah, I fell into some cool stuff early on. So I worked in analog and worked with Maureen Droney, major engineers. And then that spun off into clubs and doing mix shows at KITS in San Francisco, and then back to Pittsburgh, and then a slew of stations there, on and on and on. And then that's enough. That's how I started.
There you go. Very cool. Let's talk about remixes for a minute, because sometimes you'll get packages. I don't see it as happening as much now as it did in the past, but sometimes you'll get a package of there's 20 remixes on there. What do you guys think about that? Is that total overkill? What should the purpose of a remix really be for an artist, for a label, and for the DJ?
I can jump on.
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
Okay. For us, on the label side, so we have a label we run called Liftoff, and we don't do many remixes on records, but when we do, they're usually the ones that we're going to radio with, or that the songwriting is such a certain way where we want to expose it to another market. And I think that's the main thing is if a record or a vocal on a record lends itself to having a lo-fi mix, or specifically a house mix, if it's more of a big room progressive record and we want a cooler, houseier thing, it's to just expose the record to another market. So max will do is 2 or 3, and that's usually maxing it out. If anything, it's 1 or 2. But yeah, for us, it's always what's the other angle on this? And if we're going to go that route to hit that other angle or genre, it needs to be dead on. And I think that's one of the things that gets missed a lot in those big packages. It's you'll get 10 mixes kind of targeting the same people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm all for
sometimes
giant
think
package
that
as long as they're not stepping on each other's markets, because then kind of what's the point?
Yeah, no, it's true.
Some of the,
Yeah,
I think it's a little overwhelming to get too many mixes, because you have to spend time with the song, and as a person has to go through a lot of music all the time. When somebody sends me a big package like that, it's a little overwhelming. I can't spend enough time with each one of those mixes, so I'm just skipping through really quick. I think you lose a little bit by overdoing it like that.
Yeah,
It's
John,
definitely diminishing returns.
Yeah, without a doubt. John, you're a Billboard DJ, so you've gotten packages like that, and not probably just once, but then 3 weeks later you get a whole slew of new ones.
Yes.
So as a guy who gets that stuff, do you go what am I going to do with this? Or does it become is this record really that good, or that they have to keep making all these mixes?
Well, typically what I do is, I search for the one that's going to work for me. and I jump through it like Chuck does, quickly, boom, boom, boom. And a lot of times you know the style of a lot of these guys that are doing mixes. So you know, no disrespect to them, but it may not you know, work for where I'm at or my show or in the room I'm playing in. But some guys it works for, because I've gone places and seen these mixes work and I would never have played that mix. I'm like, all right, well, that works for him, but it doesn't work for me. So it really has to do with, you know, back when I first started, there was maybe one mix or no mixes.
Right, yeah.
One extended version. That's how it used to be. And then, you know, record companies allow people to become more creative as remixers. You know, and when that happened, guys have their own styles and people follow that style, and you know, they get caught up in sometimes having, you know, 15, 20 remixes of the same song. And there may be one that's in there that is the gem that you go, wow, that was the one, you know, that one really did it, you know?
Yeah.
So, I'm like very biased when it comes to the subject, because I don't have an outwardly like I'm not Michael Jordan on the outside, but inside, when you get a remix package and you go through them all and you're like, these are all garbage, like it number one pisses me off, because I'm like, somebody paid someone to make this shit, like, is basically like what I'm thinking. And I'm like, who's gonna play this? Like if the record is big but it's not serviceable for us tool wise as DJs, like for mix show, radio, whatever, like I don't really see a purpose in making it unless you're purposely like, okay, we need a version to play, so like all the shopping music channels like can play it in the background of the store, or like, you know, like lo-fi, like there's channels specifically for that. Like that's fine if that's your angle, but when you throw like you know, you get 10 mixes and it seems like 4 of them step on each other's toes and they're all kind of mediocre, like instead of just like narrowing it down to like the one that, you know, it's just, to me, I'm like, this is pointless. Like, and it feels like wasted money for the record label, like to pay people to do these. Like, I just feel like I kind of like to make stuff that it rides the middle on a lot of genres, so that, you know, if you're like a house guy, like it's like, okay, that's edgy, but you know, it doesn't totally destroy the vocal like arrangement sometimes. Like, you know, I've just been playing it out a lot. Like you see, if you're playing radio or stream, it's different. You don't have a dance floor, but sometimes I'm like, okay, this might be like a cool concept, but would this destroy my dance floor? So then I'm like, nah, that's not gonna work. Like, do something different when you're editing. So,
right.
I think the structure of the Billboard chart and the panel in general kind of incentivize those really big packages.
That's right.
Because they have to get as many of the DJs from that panel on board as possible. It's not enough to make like a mix that half the panel loves. You really got to get almost everybody to like at least one of the mixes. So
I think that
we're
sometimes
seeing less of that right now because the panel's on hold.
Yeah.
Like mix shows, you know, especially if you're on a safer station, you want to have something that's going to be closer to the original, you know.
Yeah.
And I think, Scooter, that's what you're talking about, is having something that has the essence of the song still, because if you go too far left, people punch out and they're not listening, and then you're going to lose your position from your mix show. So there's, you know, it just depends on the world you're in, you know?
Yeah, I just played that. I just recorded one of my mix shows like before we got on this call, and like there's a current like Loud Luxury single, and like I was like, oh, like it'd be cool to kind of remix this, but like the original like has a cool like little funky drop in it, and I'm like, this would be cool just to kind of like put a little bit harder of a synth to it, maybe a little bit heavier drum, but I'm like, some of the songs don't need a lot, like, you know what I mean? It's just like kind of just like a little, you know, a little duct tape here or there.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
a little quick, you know, face lift
tires, and you know, you're good to go. So
right. Let's say hello to a few people. We've got John D'Angelo's in here, Cheryl Costello, Jay Dobby, He needs a remix of the remix. Pete Down, Chris Kopech.
Yo, Pete, what up, Chris?
What's going on, everybody?
There's talented editors in the chat right now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, without a doubt. This just came up today on one of the boards, and I know some of you guys have seen it because you just responded to it. But as you're all mix show DJs, who's responsible for the content in your mix if there's an explicit version you get? Like, someone apparently was sent an explicit version, got on their syndicated show, whatever, and, someone was kind of freaking out about it, blaming the remix service that put it out. But don't you think it's the DJ's responsibility to check that or not? Up to you guys.
I definitely
I'll
think
chime in.
I do. All I do is reverse out something like, I'll make sure that in the MP3 it's flipped. If it's in there and it's a good mix and you can't get a clean version of it, I cut it out, or it's on me, I think, for my show.
Right.
We're gonna come back to you. PD's coming back. The PD's coming back to you, believe me.
100%.
Yeah. You're not gonna be like, hey, here's the record label's number.
That's not gonna work.
Sorry.
I think if a service sends something specifically labeled as a clean mix and it's not a clean mix, it's also, you should check as the DJ, but that's also a little bit on them.
That happened to me like 3 weeks ago, and it was an email blast from a label for a song, and I listened to it because I sometimes, like, if it's a specific song I'm getting, like, sometimes I'll download it right to my DJ laptop, like only to clean to my DJ because I know I'm gonna play it there. And I played it. I put it in Serato, and I was like, "Oh, that's an F-bomb." It's like right out the gate. I immediately replied like, "Jay, just so you know, I'm glad I played this through. But if you're DJing and you're recording mix shows, I don't know, are you not listening when you're DJing? You just you mix and then turn it off like the radio station for 4 minutes, and then you're back. I don't know. I feel like that's on you to do."
No, 100%. Chuck, do you want to say something?
Yeah, with all the stuff that we put on our issues, that's one of the things we pride ourselves on, is making sure that the edits that are going on are radio friendly. They're clean. They're as clean as you can get, because you never know where they're going to be played. It could be played in a mix show, or a DJ that's got our service maybe playing it at an event, maybe City Walk at Universal, and you look at who's walking around there. It could be somebody pushing an infant stroller around, or it could be, somebody's grandparent, and they don't want to hear F-bombs or anything else. So we pride ourselves with that. With the other stuff that maybe doesn't make it on an issue, it'll say clean from the label, but they obviously have a different standard by which they're titling something a clean edit.
Yeah, I know that
they're starting to get a little bit better, especially with the hip hop stuff, where they would take out the middle two letters of a word, but leave the front and back of it, and it still sounds like shit or ass or whatever. But now they're tightening up a little bit, which is great.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I know that a lot of the Europeans, they have their radio edits, they kind of have a different thing. And sometimes we'll find curses in them and, have to say, hey, be careful. It even happened with Tate McRae. Her record went out and guys were playing it, and, it had a few curses in there that nobody caught or wasn't really paying attention to until we brought it up, and they were like, oh yeah. So, it's definitely something you got to pay a little bit more attention to if you're a DJ, playing on a radio station, for sure.
I think pop genres too, you're less alert. Sometimes I'm if it's name the female pop artist, like Ariana Grande's current single, I had heard it on the radio a few times, but before I started playing it immediately in my mix show, and then the third or fourth time I listened to it, I was like, holy crap! The not clean version has a whole lot of things that I just kind of my ear didn't think would be there. They're pretty explicit sexual innuendos and right to the point. And I was like, wow, she was when did Ariana Grande grow up and start putting in adult language in her record? I just didn't think to listen for it. It if it's like Megan Thee Stallion, I'm like, my ear's always like,
Right.
yeah. Or like Cardi B, like there was 3 versions of that record. There was the video version, which actually was like super clean, and then there was clean, and then like obviously the one everybody, the not clean version. But yeah,
It's like
the danger one is the one that says extended remix. The danger is the one that says extended remix. This happened to me today. I have it in the show, and it says extended remix, and there's FU all through it, and you're like,
where'd that come from?
Yeah, well, I make sure that
Yeah, you listen.
Once you get that, I take that and put it into software and reverse it.
Yeah.
And then spit out a new MP3.
That's why I still use Adobe Audition, because I can do some ninja editing, like on spectral waves. Like I don't have to like before. It'd be like I hate reverses. Like it's like makes me cringe, because like if you listen to some of the old hip hop '90s like clean versions, they just did that. Like it's like really sloppy. So like that, I have like bad memories from like listening to those. Some of the radio stations still play those versions, so I like have to like go in and like edit around the vocal, like draw a special thing around it, and then if I am forced to like audibly remove it, like on the spectral, I'll like do it that way, because sometimes like there's snares and kicks and all kinds of it gets kind of ugly if you're constantly doing that. But I mean that sometimes you have no other choice, so it's like especially dance remixes of like dirty songs. Hardly ever do clean versions. I have more edits of those things I have to go in and fix. Like lately people will do like house versions of hip hop, and I'm like, this is great, but dirty vocal, and I'm like, dang it, like
Yeah, you can't.
I think sometimes it's the label too. Like I think remixers are very often aware of this and will submit both the clean extended, the dirty extended, the clean radio, the dirty radio, and then the label receives this and they put the dirty radio up on the release, and then that's the only one that gets serviced to anyone, and the rest is just sitting on a studio hard drive and never makes it out.
Yeah, until they get someone to promote it, and they're like, "Hey, can we have that clean version? Because we can't go with this."
Yeah,
I do the same thing.
That person who's in between there doesn't even know about it.
Right, that's true too. I actually executive produce a rock mix show in Florida, and the guy who does it for me, he does it late at night, and so there's been times where I've caught a curse word go by that I'm like, dude, you gotta pay more attention and send it right back to him, because we don't need to lose the show over something like that. You just gotta listen though. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's the DJ's responsibility to preview the tracks that if they're going to play them in an audience where it matters, you should preview what you're playing. Yeah,
no, 100%. I agree with that. Scooter, you do a lot of, and Chuck, you do a lot of edits for some of the services, intro, outro things. Scooter, you do kind of really remix with edits in them. What do you look for in doing those? Is it just taking a piece of like a part of the record that's already there and just tacking on the front and back, or are you guys recreating?
Yes.
You're doing both.
Okay.
Yes. Doing a little bit of both. I prefer if I'm creating or if I'm having somebody create an intro and an outro, using what's already in the song. That way it sounds like it's label produced. That way it doesn't sound like your typical redrum. But if I don't have anything to work with, we'll redrum it. We'll recreate, whatever sounds we need and put those in it.
In a perfect world, you'd have the stems to work with. That really makes it so much easier.
Yeah, without a doubt.
But that honestly, like that just doesn't like half the time. I mean, I can get my hands on instrumentals and stuff, but I mean, when the song comes out and it's pushed, like I forget what record it was, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Probably it was like a Bieber record or something, but they promote it and it drops at midnight. I want to be on it and make an edit. So, but in my mind, I'm always like, okay, this is going to be a mix show edit. And after I do my mix show edit, if I feel that I don't like how the kick punch is or whatever, like maybe I'll just like leave the session up and go in and then like do a little sprinkle of this or sprinkle of that, like to preference. And it's like subtle stuff, but sometimes it can be just like, I don't like the clap they use and it's a little quiet, or it doesn't, like, I'm real picky with drums and stuff. So sometimes I'll just like, it's so subtle, but when you play them back to back, like you notice the difference. And as far as like making parts that don't exist, like there's so many tools now that we didn't have even 5 years ago to like clear parts of songs in and out. And I can almost like 9 times out of 10 get a clean snare or kick. Like I can edit around stuff, clean it up, like again in the spectral wave displays, like just like kind of go in like a surgeon and like remove things and I'm like really, really, really picky about that. Like it takes a long time to sometimes build an intro when you have nothing to work with, but
right.
It's there. You just gotta go. It's like digging for gold. Like you gotta clear away all the crap and use it. But it's a process sometimes just to do an edit, like an intro.
Yeah.
There you go. Danny, I hope I didn't keep you waiting too long. I just saw you were down there.
No, I just been listening to you guys. What's up, everyone?
What's going on? So we went through this earlier. How'd you get involved in the music business, Danny?
So I don't know if Nick already said, but we both went to Berklee College of Music. So I met him up there in Boston. I went in thinking I wanted to work in like a recording studio. Pretty quickly learned working in recording studios, a lot of like setting microphones up and then stuff that wasn't that exciting. And so then I started making my own music. Yeah, that was it.
Cool. Was it always like a dream of yours to get into music, or was it something you just kind of happened upon?
Yeah. I mean, I played music from early on. I played trombone all through like grade school and then all the way through college.
Prove it.
It's in here somewhere. I have to dust it off, the old rusty trombone. Yeah, I've always been a fan of music, but I didn't really start doing anything like music production really until college, and mostly just because it wasn't as accessible. Like my family's PC was not about to run Ableton Live, so I think if I had found that a bit earlier, I would have been into it at a younger age. But yeah, didn't really start the music production thing until I was out of high school.
Nick took all the credit for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I'd have a talk with him afterwards.
He said he twisted your arm just to start the group. So it's...
Well, yeah, he was like, yo, you've got like 20 tracks just sitting on your hard drive. We should probably do something with them. That's the story of our career.
There you go. That's funny. Record labels come out with a release. Is there something like there used to be back in the 80s, 90s, they would put the acapella on there. They'd put the instrumentals on there. Now with, everything digital, you don't really see a lot of that. Is it something you wish that they would go back to?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, just because, you guys can get it by ripping it, but it's never the same or as good, and you're going to get it anyway. So why not just give it to you?
Yeah, totally. It's in their best interest because we're going to find the DIY acapella or make it ourselves, and then it's just not going to sound as good.
Right.
We're going to play it out.
If a lot of us on here are fortunate enough because, we built relationships, and I think, in any industry, so everything is built on relationships, but not everybody has the opportunity to have relationships. And to be honest, we with the pandemic and just the music industry in general, everyone's job has been changing so much. So someone on a label that you've known for 10, 15, 20 years, and all of a sudden they don't work there anymore. And there's a new person in the promo department, that, you're hey, I don't work here anymore. You'll be dealing with Julie or whoever the heck it is. And hey, Julie, hey, I'm doing an edit for this. I need this, blah, blah, blah. And they're and they don't respond and you're just used to having trust build up. That's probably the biggest question I get from people I don't know is other DJs. They literally DM me all the time. Hey, do you have a acapella? Where do you get this? Where is this? Where is this? And it's I don't know what to tell them because it's not even accessible for most of us unless we have to ask half the time. And it's sometimes they're cool. Sometimes, you know, like some artists just don't like giving it out. Like it's just.
I gotta say, while Scooter's talking, he's responsible for probably the first remix that we ever did that was not official, I guess, but like the first time we got a real acapella was Usher, "Loving This Club." Came from this guy right here.
There you
I
go.
forgot about that. Yeah.
I feel like before that we were basically just doing bootlegs, like taking the record itself and working with it and calling it a remix. But that was the first time we had like studio quality acapellas to do anything with, going back like 12 years or something.
Yeah, and honestly, like that was again like early on. It's just like relationships. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm very much like I don't share like files and stuff normally. I mean, if there's like, you know, like there's guys in the industry who like, you trust you know their work. Like if you get approval, like, you know, of course I'm going to give it to, you know, the Disco Fries or whatever, because they're going to smash it. You know what I mean? But I'm not just like, when you get those files, like especially nowadays, everything's shrinking. Like you really have to feel like you're being entrusted with something that not everyone in the world has. So like you're not going to do something stupid with them. You don't post them on internet forums or YouTube or some crap like that. You know what I mean? So it's kind of just being trustworthy and knowing that like most labels, like if you're like, hey, this is what I did with it, and they're like, we can use this. Our mix show people can actually use this. Like this is, you know, we can get more spins out of this. Like if there's a reason behind it, I think they're more inclined to work with you. You're not just like, oh, I'm just collecting it and sitting on my hard drive. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Sure. All right. Shout out to Johnny Flores, Karen Blake, and this guy who works at a label. It's Sean Roberts from Columbia. He says, hey, y'all, as a label promotions guy, sadly, I don't always have the acapellas or instrumentals to share, but I always do if they're made available to us. So we appreciate that, Sean.
Yeah. It's just like, you know, I mean, if that's the case, that's the case. There have been times where I have an idea or I do a remix and I'll just like make a vocal, and then what happens is like you send them the final product and be like, hey, this is what I did, but you know the vocal's kind of shoddy. Like, you know, here's what I did. Do you mind getting me the studio vocal to swap out? And a lot of times, like in that case, you do it kind of ass backwards, because then they're like, okay, like, yeah, this is useful. Like you did something. I see what you're doing. You're not just asking to ask. And it's like, thanks. All right. Talk to you next week. Like
a lot of times too, if I'm doing a remix for a label and it's a known artist, for example, you're signing your life away if they're sending you stems. I mean, they make you sign a contract that you're not sharing it with anybody because you're getting parts. I got Earth, Wind, and Fire parts for September, and they sent every part.
Wow.
So you get everything. So, but you can't share it. I mean, it's you signing your life away.
Yeah, and even when you don't have to sign it, it's that unwritten rule not to. I mean, I did. Yeah. DJ Q asked me if I could find the Sarah McLachlan, track for him on all the parts, and I called up RCA, and they were like, "Yeah, go have him do a mix." And so, he gave it to them first, but they never made him sign anything. They just sent over everything, all the parts, and they trusted him with it, and as far as I know, he never gave it to anyone. So, you have to also know who you're dealing with sometimes too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a collection of stuff that, and I'm like a hoarder when it comes to like old stem, weird stems, like
all those Michael Jackson stems you have.
Yeah, dude, everything.
I know you.
Like, I'm like a weird collector. I'm like, oh, John Denver stem. Yep. Yep.
Oh, that's cool.
Like weird stuff that, like, well, when I had the stems for what was that? We were just talking about the other day on our other Zoom. The song that went big on TikTok.
Dreams, Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, Fleetwood Mac, and I had those stems, and I was like, I did the edit before it got big, but I was like, thank God I have these stems because. But again, that's just like nerdy me, like, you know what I mean? Because it feels like you're sitting in the room when you close your eyes and you play the vocal stems loud. That's like the coolest thing in the world. Like,
yeah, without a doubt. That is cool. All right, Bert, how many do you have?
About 1.5 terabytes, I think.
Danny doesn't know this,
huge.
But Bert has like every remix ever made. If you ever need anything, you give him a call.
Bert's the guy.
He's the archivist of remixes for
Yeah,
the
John
country.
was talking you up heavy the other day with that. He said you should just like own Discogs.
I mean, I have a couple thousand submissions on there by now, I think.
See, there you go. That's great. Let's talk DJ pools. You know, Chuck, you work for one. Scooter, I know you do a lot of work for one. What is your feeling about them for getting music to DJs? Sometimes, there's pools out there that do, just unofficial mixes, and, there's legit pools that just do the regular, whatever the label wants put out there. Is there, in the digital age with, you can get any track now anywhere, are they still a good idea?
Yeah, best thing to happen to our career by far.
There you go.
I honestly don't know. I mean, I know there'd be other avenues, but if they didn't exist, like if they disappeared at some point in the last 5 to 7 years of our trajectory, I think it definitely we would have taken a hit. And especially with this new record, like you have this record out called Forever Love with Bingo Players. That's a plug. Go check it out. And that record, we got to all those guys right away, and they were instrumental in getting it out to everybody. That like, what are we gonna do? Individually email all these people that are on these pools? Like, we don't have access to everybody, so I think they're super important.
Yeah, years ago, when it was record pools, everything was very regional, and the landscape has totally changed over the last 25 years, where we're basically a national pool, so we have a database that spans the entire country. So yeah, it's totally beneficial.
Yeah.
I'm biased. I mean, I think that if I wasn't so, if I didn't think the people that I work for were, I think the world of them, the great people outside of, if you took all the music away, I just feel very highly about the people that I work for at the record pool. But I mean, if I had to just not work for one pool, I think it'd probably be more beneficial for somebody to just send their stuff out to all the record pools. You can have your opinion about which one, tries to do things the right way and which ones don't. There's definitely some that fall on either side, and I have my personal opinions about those. And I'm sure everybody in here does too, especially lately, because there's a lot of hoopla going on behind the scenes with certain ones. So there's a weird struggle going on there, but I think they're super useful. I use them religiously every day of the week. I produce music for them with in the mind of distributing, whether it's recurrent stuff, which again, that's a whole nother issue, but there's DJs that are doing more mobile events now, and they're playing mobile events more like they would play nightclub sets. People are more open-minded to all genres of music. So, I just did an edit for the Bee Gees last week, and then I'm doing something else. It's I did ABBA, it's all this crazy stuff that people are just, that still works, but I'm finding myself going back and doing things with older music because everybody's more open to it now. So I think it's absolutely useful, but again, I'm biased. So, I mean,
no, I agree. And I think that, if you are an artist coming up, you need to get your music to these guys, because it is, like Nick said, one of the fastest ways. It's like a highway into people's, crates. So just, get them the music, let them do what they do with it, because they're really good at it.
The other thing, I think, if there's artists watching that has helped us on the pools, is noticing trends within the pool of edits that they specifically want, whether that's a quick hitter, so it goes to the verse, goes to the chorus, goes to a mix out, so it's under 2 minutes, or one thing we did a remake of Mary J. Blige Family Affair, but it was more of an up-tempo club version. So we did a transition version from the original record into the remix, specifically for the pools, because those guys are all open format DJs, and we knew that would work. So I think just noticing trends of what the editors are doing on those sites, guys like Scooter, DeVille, like all these guys are doing super slick edits. And if you kind of take that mentality and apply it to your original record, I think that's a good approach.
Cool. I know that Promo Only does video stuff. Do you ever alter the videos? I don't know if you do. If you like do, besides the mix, I know there's a power mix, but do you do like, intros to them, add them to the videos? Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, well, usually the intro edits that we're creating audio-wise, we'll take and track videos to those, and occasionally we'll do remixes. Remixes are a totally different bear. In doing remixes for audio, we've all heard, where somebody takes an acapella and they speed it up too much and it sounds like garbage. Well, when you're doing that with video, it's even worse. So
yeah.
You get people walking around in the video or singing in the video at like a much faster pace than humanly possible.
Right.
So it's definitely a different can of worms. But yeah, we do remixes and the intros and quick edits.
Very cool. Scooter, have you done video edits or are you strictly audio?
I've been doing video since 2004. So
okay.
I still edit. I do a lot of my own video edits still, especially now with streaming too. Like you see the green screen, like a lot of times when I DJ, the videos are playing behind me or something else. So I've always just been a big proponent of that. Like some people think it's pointless or it's distracting, which, in some rooms I definitely agree. Like, but now half the venues, like the LED screens encase the whole room. So I'm like, well, they might as well play the videos because otherwise, you literally have a guy hired to do that job. He might get the night off. I don't know if he'll be mad or happy about that, but they're up there like nailing the strobes and the lasers and the screen visual. So, I mean, might as well do it. I like doing video, but.
There you go. John, when you were in the clubs before the pandemic, were you doing video at all?
Some, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually also did for a couple different people. They would send me remixes and I would do the video edits of the remixes, adding, the video to that mix.
Right.
Turned out to be different than the originals. So yeah, I've done them over the years.
Were you able to get like extra footage to put in there or just use what you had?
No, they would send me footage.
Okay. Chuck, yeah. I know you do that too. And Scotty B does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We contact the label and get B-roll footage to include in the remix or the extended.
Very cool. And Bidera, do you collect video remixes or just audio?
That's a rabbit hole I am not going down.
Don't get them started. Hard drives then.
I ask somebody else to do it for me, and I leave it in their hands.
There you go. One of the big things in the pandemic, more positive things I think has come out of it has been the streaming world for DJs. Not so much. Well, the labels do benefit from it, and I don't understand why we can't just have a national license where these guys can sign on and be able to use these tracks. But Twitch has become massive with DJs playing, and I've seen talent that I never would have seen before. How do you guys feel about live streaming on Twitch? It was Instagram and Facebook beforehand. Is it going to fade away after this pandemic goes away? Is it here to stay? Do you not care? Nobody? Anyone do it? Has anyone
talking
about it? You tried it? Okay, everyone froze. Everyone just stand.
No.
Nick and I haven't done it. I think mostly just because when the pandemic hit, we just shifted our focus to production stuff. But I know so many DJs that were out 4 nights a week. Like, what other option do you have but to figure out the live streaming thing? I'm curious to see if it does stick around. Maybe people do during the week when people aren't going out, but I can't imagine DJs are going to stay at home Friday, Saturday doing a live stream.
Yeah, I think it's here to stay, but once clubs reopen, it'll shrink down a little bit. it's definitely oversaturated because the market for it isn't as big as the market for in-person DJs, and like every DJ is doing it, so it's very overcrowded. And if you didn't start months ago, I think it's like impossible to get this off the ground right now.
I'm working
Unless
with
you're already massive.
a new company that I did. I did a gig for Amazon Music, but the company that initiated the platform, it's a new one. It's called Shindig that I'm working with, and it kind of allows you to. There's like a virtual stage, and you can have side like video conversations with each other, and then choose like what you want to do, and the presenter can put the person up like on this digital stage theoretically, like, and I did a whole set like with people coming in from the company, and some people were like they like showed their talent, like, and then I played music for a half hour and then like pulled the music down for a little bit and introduced like some people. It's like a cool concept. It's a little bit more interactive than just Twitch can be. I mean, Twitch has like bits and, you know, comments and stuff, but it looks like that there's some other people trying to jump into the space, and I feel like now that everybody is getting more used to it, there will be a use for it even beyond like when the world opens back up. Like, you know, they can always lean back on that as an option. Like, you know, in some ways, I feel like it's beneficial. It'll find its niche, like in some way or shape or form.
I definitely think it's beneficial, especially for guys that are starting out and who need exposure. And we're trying to catch the eyes of guys that, you know, are maybe booking, you know, DJs in clubs, and they're looking to see the new hottest guy who's somewhere where nobody knows where he is. So it's an opportunity for them, you know, to expose their music in a different platform. So I think it's great. I think it's a good thing.
Actually, I mean, I think when the clubs open back up and DJs start working again, maybe these Twitch streams will go from, you know, their bedrooms or extra rooms into the club.
Yeah.
Which is really no different than your standard mix show now, just live.
Yeah, I did that a little bit this summer because I was able to work for a little bit at outdoor venue in a beach town, because it was like I was on stage and everyone couldn't dance. They were just sitting at tables outside in the beach. But I like did that for a little bit, and I'm like, yeah, I could see myself now that I know how this all works, you know, self-taught, like through trial and error, that I could see myself just like going live for an hour, like peak hour, just to kind of like promote yourself or kind of see like what the vibe is. If people are like, and then if you do that or record it, like you could always stream it later. Like if you just record yourself, you could always go live on Twitch later as like a bonus feature. Like, hey, you feel like you really crushed the last hour and a half or whatever. Like, you know, I recorded my set. Like I'll put it on Twitch, like, or whatever. So I don't know. There's options.
Some of you guys know that, you know, back in the day, mix shows were live from nightclubs. I mean, I did that 4 hours straight. You were playing live on the air. Turn on, you know. So this is like that, and especially if you get a big following. I mean, you could have more people on Twitch watching you than a radio station could ever expose you with. You know, that's the secret. So making it interesting is the big part. If it's boring, who wants to watch something? You get bored with seeing a guy stand there. You know, it's got to be interesting.
To John's earlier point, I think it's also going to be a metric for promoters, yet another metric for promoters to use for new guys. I know, but it will be a thing. Like if you go to a club to get a gig, they're going to automatically say like, well, are you streaming on Twitch? How's your following? It's just going to be another thing to pile on that situation. But at some level, I think if used the right way, it is a good tool. Because like if I were running a club and I asked a kid if he's on Twitch yet and he's streaming, like I could at least get a sense of like, all right, where is he at?
Yeah, right.
Right.
My bigger concern also is clearances, because, you know, back in the old days, Napster and LimeWire and downloading, and then you get into, you know, Spotify, and there's got to be somebody's got to pay the piper. Eventually, that's going to happen, where you're going to see the RIAA come down on this stuff, and they're going to want to collect money for songwriters. That's happening. It's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, but we know it can be done legally because Mixcloud's doing it legally. So it's just a matter of Amazon hopping onto it and paying what they should be paying.
Yeah.
Nah, I don't know if they have the money for that.
Would they put it all on GameStop or something?
Yeah, it was a hedge fund.
So yeah, I mean, I think live streaming will be around, and I think that a couple things. Talking to Riddler, his club is actually prepared to do it. For DJs that come in, and it's just about he's like, all I have to do is set up another mic that's just for the Twitch stream. So like an Angie V, who was at the club last Sunday, can do her thing, jump around, and she likes talking on the mic. She can do that as long as it's not going out to the club. So that's one way to do it. I also think that a lot of these DJs, because of the pandemic and because people want to hear music that makes them feel good, and that's why they're watching these streams, you are going to have a lot of them doing music that they can't play in the clubs as an escape, like they're doing now. And I think that that's going to continue. VTech does this insane show on Sundays where she just mixes, and you think you're in a club, 50s and 60s music. And it's awesome. So I think that there's going to continue that way with stuff. So what is this? Scotty B.
I'm playing current when I'm doing streams. I'm playing 90s, 2000s because that's what speaks to me more.
There you go. And that's the stuff that you want to hear, and that's cool. And it'll definitely find an audience. So very cool. I don't know what do you think that the music pools, the record labels, anyone basically that services music can do better to help you guys have a better set, not work as hard, doing your edits? Should they put out more DJ edits when they put out promo packages, or just leave it to the pools or whoever wants to do them? I mean, because I get a lot of songs that, I was working for Mix Show that doesn't have an intro or an outro, and you're like, okay, what do you want me to do with this? So should that come from the label, or is it a secondary market?
I think it should come from the label because they're the ones better equipped to make it happen. The best intro, outro edit is that could possibly be made is the one that's going to be made by whoever produced the record, because they have all the parts to do it the cleanest way possible.
Right.
And I think a lot of the time they do it, and at some stage between the song being produced and then going through all the A&Rs and the promoters and the pools, it gets lost.
Yeah, I've noticed lately in the last year that I'm getting a lot of great songs.
Right.
That need a lot of work intro wise just to get it in the mix show. It's like, and how much time do you have, right? How much time do you really have?
Exactly. And I'm trying to play shows where I'm playing the new releases. I'm trying to play like what came out. I'm Friday night. I'm playing things that came out Friday morning. I don't have time in that window to make a whole bunch of edits. So if I don't have the extended mix and no promoter send it to me, I look up the label, I look up the artist, I send an email to their management like, hey, do you have it? And if they send it to me, I'll play it. And if they don't, well, maybe next week if it shows up.
Well, what's interesting is like being on the artist and the remixer side. On the remixer side, we get like a full rundown from you guys know, you get a full rundown from the label. Like we need the extended instrumental, the radio. Like when you run your remix, these are all versions to send us.
Yeah.
But when we do a label deal on the artist side for like our original records, they're just like deliver masters. And
they don't
give us like, I mean, we know to do this already, but like they don't give us a rundown of like these are the must-haves. So it's not the artist's fault. I agree that it should come from the studio, but it's very strange that the labels don't have that protocol. They don't apply the protocol that they apply to remixes to original records. Because if they just did that, this all would be fixed. Yeah,
I noticed like Republic's been really good at that the last year or so. There's not a lot of records that I get from them that don't have that. It sometimes isn't instantaneous, but which would be beneficial, obviously, but we were talking the other night about like these records that blow up off TikTok. Like some of them, it's like they just blow up, and then yes, you can buy it on, Amazon or you get service. But again, it's just like things happen so fast that like there's nobody. It's not like a consistent person at these labels that is like, don't forget about the DJs who actually need to like fit these in our mix shows, or like actually need to utilize these for clubs or whatever. They're just like, get it out. I care about my stream,
Right.
like they don't think that way. And it's asked backwards to then like send the record out, request the files, then send them to you, then send back the edit. But, like I don't mind doing it, but I hate it. Sometimes you feel like you're a pest because you're like, I've asked you 3 times in this month for like instrumentals or something like, yeah, I like collected them, but at the same time, it's like, if you just had a mix show edit in the pack, I'd be like, good to go. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Save you a lot
On
of
one
time.
side, I feel like I'm pestering people. On the other side, I think, if you put it on Beatport or literally anywhere where I could find it on my own, I wouldn't be pestering you.
That's a good point.
Funny how things go in cycles, because early in my career when I was young, there was a lot of songs that didn't have remixes. It would be a 45 with an instrumental on the back side of it. And the reason why I got into tape editing was to create a mix. So we're right in that same spot again. It's like a lot of labels are not providing, these, because it's like it repeats itself. It's crazy, these things.
I don't like. I feel bad. Like, I kind of feel like we sound like we're just like bashing labels, but at the same time, like, always try to like step into other people's shoes. Like, some of it is just ignorance. Like, not in a mean way. Just like they're not in our heads. Like, they're not music people necessarily. Like where we came from, like cutting tapes with razor blades and.
Right.
Like they don't come. They're not cut from the same cloth in that way, so they don't necessarily like realize like, oh yeah, like they need this, they need that, like, and sometimes like you just have to like once they figure it out, they should be, if they're doing their job properly, they should be like, okay, cool, for next time they need this. Like that's should be the way it goes. But I mean, maybe it's just totally like, oh yeah, my bad, I forgot.
Oops.
I don't want to come down on like labels.
No, it's
because someone's watching this, and then I'm gonna get an email Monday like, I told you talking shit.
Do it. Roll the hammer down.
That's great.
Well, I would understand it if it's a hip hop track and it doesn't have an intro edit to it. But so many dance tracks are coming out now that are they're 2-minute dance tracks, and there's nothing at the beginning. It has that, just no beat, intro, build. It's like,
It's
what are
dance.
What are you thinking? This is dance music.
Right.
It's just like a reverse symbol.
90% of the time it exists. It just got lost somewhere.
Yeah, somewhere. I don't know where though.
They made it. They just didn't put it out.
Yep, that's definitely possible. You never know. So, all right, let's have some closing statements, guys. Anything on your mind? What are you working on? Any new projects we should know about?
Yeah, we've been doing some cool stuff this year. In the midst of everything being shut down, we decided to launch a new e-commerce style website. Basically taking what Danny and I have done over the past 5 years for a bunch of different people, from Tiesto on down to like just friends, where we go in and essentially finish records. So if a song's at like 80% and maybe the drums aren't the best or like the synths aren't the best, like we'll go in and swap stuff out and help them get to 100% retail ready. So it's like a step beyond just mixing and mastering. It has that phase of it at the end. We always mix and master the record at the end, but we're kind of like doing some additional production. So we launched this site called finishmytrack.com. And we launched that a few months ago, and it's been going really well, and highly recommend everybody check it out.
Scotty has a question for you, Nick.
Let's go. I'm always refining the marinara.
Nick is our favorite Food Network star.
Marinara recipe for a long time. Just haven't found one I like.
You got to talk to Nick. He knows it all.
You go with the tried and true. If you don't know what you're doing, you just buy the best tomatoes, the San Marzano.
Yep.
Buy the San Marzano. You throw them in a blender, add salt and pepper, and you're done.
There you go. See? Simple, pure, beautiful.
Danny knows.
It's true.
There you go.
I used to try to be all fancy, like throw stuff in, but honestly, San Marzano, salt, pepper, you're done. That's all you need.
Beautiful. What's up, DJ Darth Vader? Are you on later? Let me know. Cool. What's up with you, John? What are you up to?
Writing some original material with a guy in Las Vegas. His name is Talmadge. We're doing some interesting stuff. He's a vocalist for the Temptations.
Oh, cool.
That's a fun thing. And I'm also doing commercial production too. Jingles. I've done that over the years, and that's popping in now for me because a lot of remixes have kind of slowed down, because no nightclubs open in my area. But yeah, that's what I'm doing.
Cool. What are you doing, Scooter? More edits? More mix shows than ever?
Yeah, there's probably not a day that I'm not doing something. Again, it's been a lot of repurposing old music, like refreshing it, because again, with the way the internet is going lately, it's kind of allowed a lot of older genres of music to get known to younger, which I think is amazing. And I've just always been very musically diverse, and I like all kinds of music. So, now, like, because there's not a ton of new music coming out, it's given me in quarantine a reason to go back and be like, do I have a good version of this? If I don't, let's make one. Or, we all play, and you notice that, 60s music has like no dynamic range. So you're trying to like change that and make it a little bit because when you play it next to like a new pop song, it's like ridiculously different. So it sounds almost like you killed all the low end. So I'm doing a lot of that, and I actually started some original stuff. So I'm finally doing that. People have been bugging me for years. I should just do it. So I'm excited to like find that, but I'm real picky. So probably in the next couple of months, I'll put out my first original and pray to the DJ gods that somebody plays it. So.
There you go. Very cool. Bert, what do you have going on? You got a show this week?
Every week since 2008. It's been the same time slot, 11 p.m. on energy981.com.
Very cool.
I've also been having fun with a few old classics, making up-to-date house versions. I just did one for Madonna's Everybody with her very first single. Put that online. I did a fun one for Missy Elliot's Lose Control, which turned 15 years old this year.
Wow.
Haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with that one yet.
Oh, I'd like to hear that.
Sure, I'll send it over.
I got those ones too. I haven't ever cracked those open, so it's a good one. Stem horror.
I'm always looking for more stuff to add to the library. So, anybody listening who's got CDs from like mastering houses or old tapes. What else is on here?
Yeah, reel to reel.
Yeah, sure. It's the wax cylinder.
You were commenting earlier, stuff like remixer show reels.
Wow,
Mr. Meg stuff here.
Do you purchase that stuff on Discogs?
Yeah, some of it's from Discogs, some of it's from other people that I know in the industry who don't have any need to keep these things anymore. I'm always I think I found most of what was promoed and released. So now I need to find the stuff that didn't quite make it.
I need to hit you up and see what you're sitting on.
Sure. I mean, there's some things that I've had to promise that I really can't give out, but I'm always here open to discuss like what's missing, what's found, and if I can share, I'm happy to.
Very cool. Dan, you got any solo projects now that you're breaking away from Nick?
No, the moment that Nick and I break it off, you'll never hear music from me ever again because it'll all sit on my hard drive and I will never promote it.
We have Lennon and McCartney breaking up.
Right. That's
But
funny.
we do.
Joker and Batman.
We've got music coming out. We've got an original on our label in a couple weeks.
Yep.
Nick would know better than me.
Got one on our label, one on Oliver Heldens' label, and yeah, working on some other stuff.
Remixes. We just did a remix for Armada. That'll be out.
Damon Sharp.
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Chuck, what's going on in your world?
Nothing. Dodging germs.
It's another
Trying
week
to
till
stay
Taco
alive.
Tuesday.
There you go.
Yep. He's ready. Very good. Well, I want to thank you guys for coming on the show. You can stay on. I'm going to try and raid someone. I've only done it once before, and I'll probably mess it up, but what the heck, you know? So thank you. I don't know who the guest is going to be next week. I'm not sure yet. We got a couple of people that are going to let me know, but it'll definitely be someone good. And if not, we'll have another big panel, and it'll be a lot of fun. So thanks for listening. Hey, what's up, Leone? We had Leone in there. I got to say hi to him. DJ Darth Vader, we said hello to before we get out of here.
Yeah,
John
thanks for
D'Angelo.
everybody, tuning in. We all appreciate it. I'm sure, John. Thanks for having us.
Oh, anytime.
Yeah.
Without a
Thank
doubt.
you.
This is
Definitely.
keeping me sane. Like, just it's nice seeing familiar faces, and so appreciate you for doing that.
Yeah,
Everybody buy your GameStop and AMC tomorrow.
There you go.
Just jump in.
And Dogecoin as well. Don't forget that.
All right, we're
Yeah.
going over to see Miss Ninja,
Gotta buy
DJ
it.
Miss Ninja. So we'll see you
My
soon,
GameStop
guys.
3 days ago was the time, I think.
That's so funny.
Dogecoin.
All
Thanks.
right, did we? Yeah, I'm not sure if we went over there or not. I think we did, but all right, we're gonna end this one regardless. So, all right, take care, guys.
Good night.
Good night, y'all.
It's been nice actually talking to people from the biz in person. Through webcam, I've not done this before.
There you go. No, you did a great job. Hold on, everybody.